She stood before the gilded doors of the harem, her pulse drumming louder than the flutes echoing through Topkapi's marble halls. Candles flickered on gold tiles. The entire empire celebrated her marriage, yet she wanted to vanish. Behind those carved doors waited not love, but judgment. Ottoman princesses didn't dream of wedding nights. They feared them. Her name would soon be linked with a man she'd barely met, a pasha, chosen by her father's viziers. This union wasn't about hearts. It was about loyalty, obedience, and politics. And tonight, one mistake, a single whisper of failure could destroy her life. Every servant, every eunuch, every perfumed cushion seemed to whisper the same thing: don't scream. In the Ottoman Empire, marriages were weapons. When a princess married, it was to bind a powerful family, secure territory, or silence ambition. These girls grew up in silks, but they were hostages of diplomacy. The irony? By the 16th century, most sultans refused to marry at all. They preferred concubines, because wives from noble blood came with dangerous relatives. Princesses were sent off instead, far from Istanbul, as living guarantees of loyalty. Their weddings were exile, disguised as honor. And the first night sealed the contract. No blood on the sheets meant scandal. The rumor alone could shatter a dynasty's reputation. That's why even royal daughters, raised as jewels of the empire, sometimes wept through their wedding music. Inside the harem, the air smelled of rosewater and fear. To outsiders, it was a paradise of luxury. Inside, it was a prison made of whispers. Every glance could be betrayal, every smile a mask. Eunuchs watched every corridor. Senior concubines taught the new brides how to survive the first night, as if survival were the only goal. Those women knew what happened to brides who disappointed their husbands or questioned their roles. They simply vanished. The harem wasn't filled with desire. It was filled with secrets. Behind the curtains, deals were made, alliances born, and enemies marked for death. Even the laughter was rehearsed. And somewhere among them, a princess waited, knowing her fate rested on how convincing her fear could look like obedience. There are stories the empire tried to bury, like Kaya Sultan, daughter of Murad IV, a woman so fierce she drew a dagger on her wedding night, warning her husband never to treat her as a possession. Or Hatice Sultan, who locked her chamber door each night to keep her husband away. People whispered that her defiance brought madness upon her. Others said it was the only freedom she ever claimed. The truth was simpler and crueler. These women were born into power but stripped of choice. Their bodies were chess pieces, their fear a political instrument. And still, they fought, sometimes with silence, sometimes with a blade hidden beneath their silk sleeves. When the doors closed on a wedding night, it wasn't about love, it was about proof. A piece of cloth, a trace of blood, the empire's obsession with control over women's bodies. In some households, maids waited outside the door until morning to deliver evidence to the palace. Failure to produce it meant shame, exile, even death by rumor. Imagine the pressure, knowing that an entire dynasty would judge you by what happened behind a locked door. No wonder many brides trembled, not from desire, but from terror. They weren't scared of the dark. They were scared of what daylight might reveal. Power in the empire eventually shifted. By the 17th century, women of the imperial household, valide sultans, mothers of rulers, began pulling the strings. They arranged marriages, issued orders, even dismissed viziers. But that power was bought with blood and patience. A single rumor of disobedience could send even the most respected woman to the old palace, the empire's elegant prison. Some princesses learned to play the long game, endure, flatter, survive, then rule from the shadows. Others were less lucky. Their names were erased, their portraits painted over, their jewels melted down. Even in triumph, the walls of the harem never let them forget. Freedom was borrowed time. There's a bitter symmetry to it all. The same halls that witnessed terror also heard laughter, fleeting, fragile, but real. A few women found love in their arranged fates. Some wielded charm as defense, others used it as a weapon. History remembers the powerful men Suleiman, Selim, Murad. But behind every sultan stood women who survived the nightmare of obedience. For every story of cruelty, there's a whisper of rebellion, a candle that refused to go out. Perhaps that's what scared the empire most. Not their beauty, but their will to endure. In the end, the frightened bride before the gilded doors isn't just one princess. She's every woman whose body was used to seal an empire's promise. The music plays. The incense burns. The door closes. History will call it a wedding night. She would call it the beginning of her disappearance. And yet, centuries later, we still speak her fear aloud. Because that fear tells us something the empire could never silence. That behind every golden curtain, there beats a heart that refused to belong.